Okay, hi everybody. I'll just give everybody a couple of minutes to join before we get started. Let me just make sure this is working too on my phone. Okay. So hi, my name is Taylor, and I'm from Jacobs Creek Watershed Association. I'm in charge of education and stream sampling, and this is my first Facebook Live, so I apologize. I hope the video quality is okay. I am outside, so I hope the wind doesn't interfere with anything. So today what we're going to be doing is a scientific sketch. So first I want to give you some background about what a scientific sketch is and basically what science is in general. So the way I explain what a scientist is it is someone who sees something physically in nature and they ask a question, they come up with a question about what they're seeing, and then they conduct a bunch of tests to find an answer to that question. And there are a bunch of different scientists. So there's obviously like the stereotypical scientists where it's like a chemist in a lab wearing a white lab coat and they're holding a bunch of chemicals and beakers and all of that, which it is one option. You can be a chemist and work in a lab and make a bunch of solutions. But there's a lot of other options for scientists as well. So if we're talking about chemistry, you could be a forensic scientist and you could work on crime scenes and analyze that kind of data. Or you could be a biologist, which is what I am. And there's a bunch of different things you can do in biology. So, for example, you could be a neurologist, you could study the brain and a bunch of animals, or humans if you would like. My favorite types of biology are animal behavior, where you watch animals outside in the wild and you're keeping track of what their behavior is, and then you can tell different things. So I used to study American kestrels and I would study parenting behavior. So I could tell by like how long they're incubating their eggs, how long they're sitting on the eggs, or like how much prey they're bringing back for food, etc. All those little things we can monitor and then assess how good of a parent American kestrels were. So I love animal behavior, and then there's different things like marine biology, where you go out in the ocean and you can study tons of different animals and or corals and a bunch of different things in the ocean. So there's a lot of different options. You don't necessarily have to be in a lab to be a scientist. There are plenty of options to be outside and in the outdoors and have fun. So those are just some examples of what a scientist is and all the other options for scientists, because I want to make sure everybody knows, especially if you're younger, that there's a bunch of different career choices and routes that you could go. So since scientists are always studying, they're always asking questions and studying things, we often take sketches of the things that we're observing. So if I was working outside, because we're going to be doing an outside activity, and I was logging a bunch of plants or animals, instead of taking a picture, I would want to be able to sketch it out. That way I can easily label it in real time and just have a log of something, so I can write down like the dates, I can write down what time it was, the weather. I can basically make it my own very easily instead of taking a picture. So that's why we write sketches. And we also just want to have, even though we can take pictures and take logs of everything, it's nice to just have everything easily in one notebook. Because if you're in a lab, you're using the same, everybody in your lab is using the same notebook for what you're studying. So it's nice to just have it all in one place. So today what we're going to be doing is sketching a leaf. You can use anything that you have in your backyard. I don't care if you have like some pine needles, etc. That's what we're going to be doing. I posted an example on our event. If you didn't see it, this is the example that I have. It's a leaf that I drew the other day. Oh, there it is. It's a leaf. So we're going to walk through that. So what you're going to need is a notebook or a piece of paper. I'm just using a normal ring notebook and a mechanical pencil. And then I have my colored pencils as well in a box. And I have a ruler as well. If you have a ruler, it'll be good to take some measurements later whenever we're done. So I'm going to go and hurry up and grab a leaf from the yard, and then I'll be right back. So if you don't have anything to draw right now, I would take this time to just step outside. It's not raining right now, so just step outside and grab something off of the grass. I don't encourage you to pick anything off of a live plant. So hopefully there's just something on the ground and you can hurry up and grab it. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I have a couple of leaves. I also was just told that my video is freezing, so I'm really sorry. I hope that you can follow along. So I have this leaf that was just in the yard. And so what we want to do is we want to log what this looks like, so that if we want to draw it well enough so that if we would like throw this on the ground into another pile of leaves, that we would be able to see based on our sketch that this is a specific leaf that we were looking at. So that's why we want to make sure that we're being good with our details, but you also don't have to be an artist to do this. It's just that we're just looking at this and we're doing our best to sketch out what it looks like. We're not worried about shading. We're not worried about like how big or small it is. We just want to make sure that we can look at our sketch and identify this later on. So I'm going to get a new piece of paper, and I'm going to turn the camera down so hopefully you can see the paper with my hands. Okay. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is label our notebook. So just at the top, I'm going to write that this is a scientific sketch. And then in the top right corner, I'm going to write the day. So today is the 25th of March, 2020. So we usually always do the day before the month. We try to use the units that all the other countries use. So we do day before month, and then we use military time as well. But it's 12:10, so it's going to be the same. So it's 12:10. And then since we're outside, we're going to put the weather. So the weather is cloudy and partly sunny. Well, I guess we can do partly cloudy. Okay, so now I'm going to take my leaf and I'm just going to sit it on my notebook. And instead of tracing it, this is one technique. You don't necessarily have to do it this way, but this is the technique I'm going to show you today. Is we are going to basically make a connect the dots. So we're going to go around our leaf and make a dot anywhere like the line changes. So my leaf has a bunch of rounded edges. So I want to make sure that I put a dot everywhere it's not straight. So everywhere there's a hump, I'm going to put a dot. And I'm going to do that the whole way around the plants that I have. I have a leaf, but whatever you're using, you can use. So take this time to just put your leaf or your plant on a piece of paper, and using your pencil, just go around your plant and put little dots all around your leaf, and then we will connect these later on. And the reason we're doing this is because we can put in more detail this way, where if we were tracing it, we might be tempted, to just make a straight line. But making note of all the little hills and valleys in our plant is going to allow us to make a more accurate drawing. So go ahead and take this time to draw your dots everywhere around your plant. And now it doesn't have to be perfect because, like I said, we don't have to be artists, but we do want to make sure that we're being as accurate as we can be. And then make sure to get your stem as well on your leaf. Every part of the leaf we want to draw. Okay, so I'm done with my leaf. Clean it up real quick. So I have my outline. I have the top of my leaf and my stem down here. There was a little cut in my leaf because it's dry and crinkled, so I did that as well so I can identify it later. Okay. So I hope everybody is doing well and figuring it out. So now that we have our dots all placed, I still want to keep my leaf nearby, so I'm just going to put it in the corner of my page so I can look at it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to connect the dots, but I want to be looking at my leaf at the same time because I want to make sure that if there were any like little curves that I missed, that I can look at my leaf and still put that into my drawing. So right now I'm going to start at the bottom at the stem, and I'm going to work my way up around the leaf. My leaf doesn't blow away. Hold it down. Okay, so now I'm just going to connect all the dots. On the stem of my leaf, there's some little lumps. I don't have to worry about that right now. We'll add more details in later. So right now we're just worried about connecting the dots that we had. But if there's any curves or anything that we missed, we can go ahead and add those. So use this time to just connect your dots. Remember to look at your leaf. So we're trying to replicate this the best we can. And now obviously whatever you're drawing might be different than the leaf that I have. You might not have as many humps in your leaf, or if you're doing pine needles, it's going to be a little bit different, but just do your best. Okay, so now I have my outline done. So I have a solid line all around the little dots. So before we had a bunch of dots all here, and now I've connected them all, and you can easily see all the little lumps in my leaf, etc. So that's perfect. So now we have our outline. And the next step will be to add the little details. So I'm going to start with my stem, just because it's at the bottom. So there's some dark spots here. There's some little lumps. So I want to interpret that into my drawing the best I can. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add those little details on my stem. I'm just going to add some little lumps on the side. And this will help me with the identifying. So like right now, if I were to just look at this outline and I dropped my leaf on the ground, I probably wouldn't be able to tell what leaf was what. But now that I'm adding these little details, like where there's some little dots and stuff, hopefully I would be able to identify my leaf if I lost it or if I put it in storage, etc. So that's why these little details are important. So you just want to make sure, once again, they don't have to be perfect, but you just want to make sure that you understand what it is. You want to be able to look at this drawing later and be able to identify your leaf. I've got my little lumps. And now what I'm going to do, because I have a leaf, I'm going to try and draw in all of these veins. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to draw every single little bitty vein, but the big veins are more important. The different directions and the different curves that they have, that'll be nice for you to have whenever you're trying to identify this leaf again. So go ahead and continue to add any little details that you have in your leaf. So once again, I'm not going to add every single little bitty little vein in my leaf. And if you're not doing a leaf, you might not even have this much detail. But for me, I'm taking the time to add at least all of the big veins. That way, when I look at it, I can identify what leaf I have. Okay, I'd say that's pretty good for now. Just add a little bit of squiggly lines. Okay. My stem's a little bit too big. And also, this doesn't have to be, like if your leaf is smaller and you wanted to blow it up bigger, that's okay. But because we're using a big thing, it's nice to just be able to put the dots around it and connect the dots. But the bigger the better, really, so that we can see detail. So now I got my little veins, and we're just going to continue to add more detail, basically. So because my leaf is old, I have a bunch of little spots all over my leaf. So I'm going to add a few of those too, just so that I can really add some more detail. So if you have some more details that you would like to add, just go ahead. I'm going to add some little circles next to some of the veins, so that'll really help me later on. Okay, so hopefully you've added all of your little details. Now something that's really cool. So we're looking at this leaf and we're looking at all the little details. And some of those details you might think are really cool, right? Like all these little patterns that we have on here, any little vein spots. There might be kind of like a knot in your leaf, or if you're using pine needles, you might see where like a new section grew off, etc. So whenever we're doing these things, we want to basically highlight anything that we think is unique to our subject. And what we're going to do then is zoom in, figuratively, but we're going to basically zoom in on a part that we think is really cool. So on my leaf, where the stem meets the top of the leaf, to me this looks like a cool little knot or section before all of the veins start to take off. So I think that's really cool. So that's the part that I want to highlight in my drawing. So what I'm going to do, even though I didn't draw it in super detail on my large sketch, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a big circle around that area. Okay? And then we're not going to use arrows. We're just going to draw a line. Using a ruler is best, but you don't necessarily, if you don't have a ruler, that's okay. So we're going to draw a straight line out from the circle that we drew. And this is indicating the spot that we're going to zoom in. So now I'm going to draw another circle off of my line. And this is kind of going to act as like our magnifying glass. So we're going to look at the parts of our leaves or our plants that we think are really cool. We're going to look really close at the leaf, and we're going to blow up the parts that we think are interesting. So even though it's really tiny on the actual leaf, we want to draw it as large as we can in our magnifying glass circle. So that way we're highlighting the things that we think are really cool and unique to our subject. So go ahead and find something that you think is really interesting or unique on your plant and just try to zoom it up, just draw it large to the best of your ability in this circle that we drew. Okay, so I got my big nut, and then I see there's some parts where the veins are starting to disconnect, so I'm going to draw that. So now you can see I have my leaf, I have all the little details on my stem, and then I thought that this part was really cool, so I circled it, and I zoomed in, and I drew that in a lot more detail over here in my circle. So I'll give you guys some time just to finish up any details that you may have. And now the next part that we are going to do is we are going to color in our sketches. This isn't a necessity, but it will help us be able to identify our leaf in better detail. This would obviously be more vital whenever the leaves are more vibrant and they're not all like brown because they're left over from the fall. But this is still something unique because there's still a bunch of leaves on the ground that you haven't picked up. They're all different shapes and sizes and colors, so we want to make sure to document that. So I have my colored pencils, and it's basically like a coloring page now. So this can be really relaxing and fun. So what I'm going to do, I will start with the lighter shade. So the stem of my leaf is kind of like a pale yellow color. So that is what I'm going to start with. So, and the colors don't have to be exact. Once again, you're just drawing this to the best of your ability, and so that you can look at it later and be able to identify it. So I'm just going to go ahead now and basically color this in like you would any normal coloring page. But just you're looking at your leaf and trying to replicate that the best we can. So now I have my veins all colored in. I guess I'll trace little lines. Okay, so I've traced all my little veins. So now I really think it's cool on the bottom of my stem is a darker color. So I'm going to get either black or dark brown pencil and try to highlight that in my sketch. So you're just coloring it best you can for whatever plant you have. Then I have all these little humps too on my stem, so I want to make sure to color those in as well. Okay. Now I'll move on to the large part of my leaf. So the main part of my leaf is kind of like a medium light brown color. So I will get that out and just try to, once again, you're just coloring it in like a coloring page, except it's real. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so now the main part of my leaf is done. I think it's looking really cool. And then I have those little splotches, those little dark spots on mine. And I drew a couple of, so I want to make sure to do that as well. So get out the darker brown color. Color those in. And then we don't want to forget about our zoomed in photo. So once again, look at your leaf and color that in as well. Oh, use the wrong color. Okay, so I hope you all are still with me. I hope you enjoyed coloring in your sketch. And the next part we're going to do is basically the most important part. So remember, we're logging what we're seeing or like what we're studying outside. So even though we drew a picture of the leaf or the plant that we're studying, we want to make sure to write down as many details as we can. So especially if you're like a botanist, if you're studying plants, you might want to label what parts of the plants there are. So we can go ahead and label what this stem is. And I'm going to try and do that all on the right side, just so that it's nice and neat and not all jumbled everywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw kind of like half of a rectangle. So I'm going to draw a line, a horizontal line outwards. And then I'm going to draw a vertical line upwards for the whole length of my stem. You can just do a vertical line, a horizontal line as well, like we did with the zoomed out. If you prefer that method, you can just draw one line out and then label it stem. I did a box, which is okay. So I'm going to do, so I have my box. It's measured for the whole part of the stem. And I'm just going to write stem. So we labeled a part of the leaf. Another very important thing whenever you are drawing scientific sketches is kind of like the magnification or the length of your subject or your leaf. So for our leaf, because it's large enough, we can use a ruler. So it's important to note how large your subject is. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the real leaf, not our drawing, because our drawing maybe we might have drawn it larger than what the actual subject is. So we're going to use my ruler and the leaf, and we're going to measure, I'm just going to measure the top part for an example. And we're going to measure how long it is. And when we're doing this, we tend to stay away from inches. You can go ahead and write down inches if that's what you prefer, but I'm going to measure this in centimeters because that is what every other country uses, the universal measurement. So I'm going to measure from the very top of the leaf to where the stem ends in centimeters. So my leaf is about 9 centimeters long, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did to label the stem. So I'm going to use my ruler. I'm going to make a horizontal line coming out from the top of my leaf, and I'm going to draw a vertical line down. In my picture, so I didn't draw it perfectly, I'm just going to put a horizontal line there, and we're going to label this 9.0 centimeters. You always want to include the full unit. So even though it's 9 centimeters, you want to make sure to write 9.0. That way it's clear exactly what we measured. So that's the most important part. If you were using a microscope, if I was looking at something very tiny under a microscope, which is something that's very popular whenever you're researching. So if I were looking under there and it would look like a circle, I would have something under the circle, and I were sketching it, I'm going to be sketching it a lot larger than what it actually looks like under the microscope. So under the microscope, it could be as big as like the tip of this pencil, okay? That's as big as it could be, but under the microscope, it looks, huge. It looks a few inches large. So that's important. Whenever we're drawing sketches under the microscope, we want to make sure that we're marking down the magnification of the microscope. So you can, oftentimes you can turn like a dial and change the magnification. For example, it would say like 10x or 40x. So we would want to mark down that that's the magnification that we were using under the microscope. That way we have an idea of how large it actually is. And also, if you're on a microscope, there in the eyepiece, there's actually like a little ruler. So you can measure it in the microscope as well, but you also want to mark down the magnification because that's going to change the conversion. So magnification and like length like this is something very important to note whenever you're keeping track of what you're logging. And then just for fun, so like scientists, as I said, we're always asking questions about what we see. So what I would like you to do, I'll do it on the left side of the page, that way it stays neat. But I would like you to basically ask some questions or write down some questions that you have about the subject that you're looking at. So for example, you might want to know like why my leaf is brown. So I might want to ask, why is my leaf brown? Okay, and then later on, if you would like to look up the answers to that questions, I encourage you to do that. So in this case, we would be able to find out it's because there's not enough chlorophyll in the leaf. So chlorophyll is what makes the leaves appear green whenever they're alive. And it is not green anymore. So that would be an example of an answer for that. But we could do a bunch of different things. So we could ask, how old is this leaf? Or we could even ask, how old is the tree that this leaf came from? So I'm just writing down any questions I have on the left side of the page. This would be a really interesting question to find an answer to, because then if you do know exactly what tree your leaf came from, you can try it. You can look up how to figure out the age of that tree, and that could be a really fun activity for you guys to do outside. So let's see what other questions I may have about my leaf. So I said, why is my leaf brown? The color brown. I may want to ask, if I don't know the parts, all the little parts of the leaf, I could try and look up the answers to those as well. So I can say, since this is your drawing, if you want to draw a line to something, I wouldn't use arrows. We try not to use arrows in our sketches, but you could just go ahead and draw a line to this. So I'll just draw a line to one of my veins, and I will say, I'm going to get a little bit thicker so I can see it, and I can ask, what is this part of the leaf? Okay, so that's let me play back here. So this is my final sketch. I have my leaf, I have all the little details on my leaf. I have my zoomed in picture of something that I thought was really cool. And then I labeled the parts. So I labeled the stem and I measured how large my leaf was. So the very top of it was 9 centimeters. And then we wrote any questions that we had about what we were drawing. And if we were doing like a bunch of these subjects, ideally, you would hopefully keep this leaf. Not necessarily, because that's if it's something that's alive outside, we don't want to take it away. But we would still want to like come up with a name for what this leaf is called. So I'm just gonna call this one leaf number 2, because this is my second leaf drawing. You can put it at the top, you can put it at the bottom. So just come up with a name for your subject. That way, if you're doing a bunch of these drawings, you can identify what it is. At least in your mind, you'll have an idea of what this was. And then obviously you have your day and your time, so that'll help you keep track of what you had. You'll have your cloudiness, and you can also put your location as well. So that's something very important. If you're actually outside in like a specific spot, I would encourage you to write down the coordinates of the spot that you have. So if you just have like Google Maps, if you pull up Google Maps and you put a little dot on your location and like type in coordinates, it'll have, if you like scroll down, it'll have the exact coordinates for the location you're at. So that's something very easy to find if you do not have like a large GPS unit that may be used in the field. So that's an easy way to get the coordinates. Fun fact, if you need that for anything else. So that's basically it. I hope you guys had fun. I hope the video was okay. I hope the quality was okay. This is my first time doing a Facebook Live, so I apologize if I messed up in any way. If you have any suggestions, please leave it for me in the discussion board for our event or in the comments. I will look at them later. So yeah, so I hope you guys had fun. If you would like to share pictures of the sketch that you made, I would love that. If you could share it on the event page or tag us in it, that would be great. So I know that you guys had a lot of fun. If you guys have any other ideas of like streams that you would like to see me do, I will gladly do other activities. I'm trying to find a lot of educational activities that people can do while we're stuck in our houses, unfortunately. So if you have any ideas, please let me know. And yeah, I hope you had fun. So just to summarize, so we made this scientific sketch because if we were studying anything, if we were researching different types of trees or plants, if we were perhaps in an area and we wanted to know what different species were in a specific area, we will want to log everything that we're seeing. So this is one way that we can easily log what we're studying, so that, and in a way that we can identify it later. So it's great that we added all these little details, because now if I were to go back to that site, especially if this was something that was living, that wasn't like a dead leaf, then I could go back to that and look at my sketch and be like, okay, this is exactly where I was, and this is the plant that I sketched, which will be important for whenever you go back for more details, or if you're sharing this information with somebody, that way they can understand what you drew. So it's just an easy and fun way to log that information. Okay, well, it's 12:50, so it was a little bit less than an hour. But once again, I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. Remember to share any photos that you have. I would love to see what you guys created. And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe to our page, Jacobs Creek Watershed Association. We're always posting a bunch of different activities. We always do a bunch of outdoor events as well. We're not really sure about upcoming events right now because of what's happening around the world, but we will make sure to keep you up to date on any changes for our outdoor events. It's our favorite thing to do, so we're really looking forward to our future events. So just keep checking our Facebook page. We always put any updates there. And then we have a website as well if you want to check that out as well. It's jacobscreekwatershed.org. Okay, well, it was great hanging out with you guys today. I hope you had fun. And I'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.